Hello, everyone, and thanks for inviting me in Anthropology A20. It is so exciting to be here for an anthropologist with such an audience that is talking about human-centered design, that we're talking about culture. I'm going to just briefly explain what anthropology is for maybe those who are not too familiar with it. Anthropology is the study of the past, the present, and the future of human beings. Specifically, I am a social-cultural anthropologist, so I study people's culture. And anthropologists, we are usually inborn curious. You have to be. So we make a lot of questions. Sometimes we can be a little bit annoying because we make so many questions, right? We question assumptions, we question tags, concepts. So I wanted to start the presentation by asking, are we really human-centric? And I wanted to reflect with you a little bit on what do we really mean by human-centered. So let me start with a little exercise. If you could do this with me, I would ask you all to close your eyes for a second and imagine a circle or a target with that human in the center. What does that human look like? To most of the people, the human they'll picture in the center has to have an semblance to themselves. It has to feel familiar. That means that probably if you're a white male, you saw a white male in the center of that equation. This has to do with a very anthropological concept, like Anthropology 101. You always start with ethnocentrism. Ethnocentric means that one usually always feels like their group is the best, the most natural, and you rate and value the rest of the communities, the rest of the humans in reference to yours. You put yours in the center of the equation constantly. Now, this is one of the few universal traits that anthropologists find all over. All communities tend to be ethnocentric. And this raises some problems when we are designing products or services. I'll give you a few examples, just one or two examples. For instance, did you know that the first softwares of face recognition, launched by Hewlett-Packard, did not recognize black people? This was because who designed this software? It was mostly white male in Silicon Valley who were testing it with each other and did not even think of testing it with other communities or ethnic groups. This continues to happen in other ways. For example, nowadays, voice recognition of Google has a lot more failure with women's voice than men's voice. Again, it is tested a lot more with men, more engineered. So this raises a lot of concerns, right? And it's something across the whole world. For me, the important thing that I wanted to bring into to think is that when we talk about human-centric, we are thinking of like a human that involves all human beings, like human with capital H. And that's really difficult to grasp. I'd rather talk about humans, not human with capital H, because there's few things that are really universal to all of us, right? But going back to the concept of ethnocentric, ethnocentrism impresses everything we do in life. Our language, the way we see the world. So even our concepts are ethnocentric. When I came here, I started thinking, what is the working definition of sustainability? What do people work with when they're thinking of this concept? And I found this concept you probably all know, which comes from United Nations meeting in the 1980s. Who do you think developed this definition of sustainability? Do you think they went and asked some of the most sustainable communities in the world? Maybe some indigenous tribes? Did they go and ask the Yanomamo community or the Kung? No. It was a committee of, again, probably white, male, Occidental, from a middle to high class. This is people working in United Nations, who created an official definition of what sustainability is, that we all now share. They've impressed their view of sustainability in a global scale. Humans always like to impress their ideas on the world. We brand the world with our culture. The word brand comes from burn. To burn with that hot iron in an object or a subject, and wanting to mean a sense of ownership. This is culture, human being, branding in nature, and saying, this horse is mine. So there's a sense of belonging as well. It can be shifted, it can be a good, positive thing. But we've branded the world to a point where it seems a little bit unreversible. And it's not me just saying it. Some people don't take too seriously soft scientists like anthropologists, so let's think about geologists. The subcommittee of the quaternary group of geologists have called our current era Anthropocene. This means that we live in the era of anthropos. Our brand in the world is defined, even the geological area. Society has trespassed environment. This is the brand we've done in the world. Now, sustainability is usually about people, planet, profit, right? The 3 Ps. So this is what we've branded in the planet. But me as an anthropologist, I wanted to ask you, what kind of brands do we want to make in people? What ideas and culture do we want to brand in them? Should brands be painful, like this one? This looks like a little bit painful, right? Brands should be about community, not about ownership, but yes, of a sense of belonging to something, to a group. Brands express values, worldviews. This is why, like, for teenagers, for example, it's so important to wear brands. Teenagers are in a moment where they are defining their identities. They have to find their groups where they fit in, and they use brands somehow to express things to their peers and find people who share those ideas. And even the most radical people, the anti-system or anti-capitalism, they can go to the nearest mall and at $9.99 buy their own brand. It all fits in capitalism. It embraces everything. So, going back a little bit, my point of criticism to human-centered design is that it's not such a new thing. It's just a buzzword now. Humans have always been about themselves, about putting themselves in the center. And that is what has led us to the Anthropocene era and to many other convergent crises that we are now living. Extinction of species, climate change, rise of inequality. That's about humans putting themselves always in the center. But humans, just like stars, you wouldn't imagine a star without its galaxy. Humans are the same. You can't understand humans without its context. society and environment, wider context in which we live. 2016, I founded Anthropology A20, which tries to be a new way of doing anthropology. We seek to help brands understand human culture in a deeper way and not just use it as a corporate responsibility tag. Anthropology has to leave their comfortable zone in academia, where anthropologists have traditionally lived, and enter this knowledge has to be trespassed to other spaces, such as companies, non-profit, NGOs. We are cultural divers, we like to call ourselves. And we go deep into the companies and we reveal their real stories. For us, branding is not about making up a story. For us, branding is about really revealing what your company is. What's the true purpose beyond profit? Why are you here? What do you want your legacy to be? You would be surprised, or you probably know, how many companies or CEOs can't answer to that question. So we as anthropologists, we practice ethnography, which is our main methodology. So we go and live with the people, or at least we share a lot of our time with them. We live in the same space where they are. We can interview the CEO, the workers, the shareholders, the customer users, and we start developing all these narratives. It's there. We just gather it and put it together in a nicely way. It's there. It's not about making up the story of your brand. But companies a lot of times talk on certain concepts like management, accountant, and they forget that, as you've all mentioned today, they are also people. Companies are also people. Brands are people. So if they try, they can talk in the same language as customers and other people. We try to put the two types of languages. In anthropology, we talk about emic and etic. Emic language is the native language. It's how they express their desires, aspirations. And etic is usually the technicism. We usually translate them to make them sound more professional, right? That's what scientists do in academia, in companies, people do that. We try to bring those two worlds together. It's not about using a slang or a jerk only. It's not about using technicism. It's about finding a language that allows us to communicate and understand each other and find everything that we share, align those stories. We do that also through design anthropology, which means going from a theoretical approach to an applied approach, from a critical perspective to a problem solving. So we don't just gather this information and create narratives and stay in a theoretical level. We help and accompany the companies to implement these ideas and to actually execute them. So the team of Anthropology A20 is also part of the organizing team of Why the World Needs Anthropologists event. This is where the name of the title of the chat comes from. So this is an event that will take place at the end of this month, 26th, 27th, in Lisbon. We'll have anthropologists from more than 40 countries talking about design anthropology. So if you wish to know more about this emergent discipline, I encourage you to watch it online, because tickets are sold out. And, well, we'd love to hear your story, and we'll love to talk more about us too. So if you want to learn more about anthropology, design anthropology, and what anthropology can do to create sustainable brands, feel free to contact us. Thank you.